Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, high school teacher in Los Angeles, starting my 16th year teaching high school in LA, and host of this podcast focused on viewpoint diversity. My guest today is Quisha King. She is a political consultant and the co-chair of Moms for Liberty. And I reached out to Quisha because I saw her speak at a school board meeting. And I've been watching a lot of school board meetings with critical race theory and critical social justice stuff being so popular right now. It's so like Zoolander, it's so hot right now. But she stood out because of the way she handled herself. It wasn't emotionally erratic. It wasn't anything like that. It was very strong. Quisha, you come off very resolved and strong in your convictions and your opinions and your confidence. Confidence is such an important thing, and you seem to just exude that. So I was like, I want to talk to this woman. How did you get that way? All that kind of stuff. So thank you for coming on the Cylinder Radio program. I'm excited to introduce you to my audience. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Will. I guess maybe a couple years ago, I just started kind of questioning the narrative, I guess, that was popular, especially amongst Black Americans. And I came across different people like Dr. Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, Milton Friedman, and I was just blown away. I had never heard of Walter Williams or Dr. Thomas Sowell, and I consider myself fairly educated, I guess. Yeah. And I was just blown away by these concepts, ideas, and facts that I had never heard. So it just prompted me to keep digging, and then sort of a spiritual thing happened. I'm a woman of Christian faith, and God spoke to my heart and told me that my skin color had become an idol in my life. That it was transformational. It really changed everything, because I really did see and live my life through the lens of race, being Black, and gender, I would say, a Black woman, or, all these kind of identities. And it was an offense to God. And it was very convicting. I couldn't unsee what I was shown, the revelation that I had. And so it was very humbling, but I was sad, I was mad, I was angry, I was just kind of so many different things. And it really made me want to stand up, because that is not the way you want to live. You don't want to live judging people by their skin color, or even judging yourself, or thinking that you can do something or can't do something because you're Black. In America, this is like, Black Americans are the most successful Black people in the entire world. And it's like the notion that we are just kind of perpetually oppressed because we live in America is nonsense. And I think that's why I'm so strong about it, because once you see these statistics, once you see the facts, once you read the amazing American history that Black people have certainly contributed to this country, it is like, okay, we're not chopped liver here. This is our country too. It is very, it's just as much as ours as it is anyone else's, who decides, if you're native born, or if you're, if you immigrate here and become, a citizen or whatever. But I felt like that was lost, and we were, and still are in many ways, taking the privilege of living here for granted. So I think that's why I'm so passionate about it, because I don't want people to live under that mindset. It's very debilitating.
Absolutely. I've been doing this podcast now for like 2 years, and I see these patterns over and over and over again with the people I've talked to. I had Kimmy Katiti on a couple of episodes ago, and it was her Christian faith that broke her out, because she identifies herself as being in the cult of wokeness. And she was like marking down all of the microaggressions that she just saw throughout the day. So if she like waved to someone and they didn't wave back, she's like racist. If she like, someone said like, nice hair, she's like, oh, that's like whatever, like making fun of my, so she just wrote it all down, and she's like, this is just heavy. She was getting headaches, she couldn't sleep. And then she just you know, went into her Bible and it was like, this is not the way that we're supposed to be living. And it just, she said she got a full night's rest. And then when you said about Black contributions in American history, Daryl Davis, who I had on my podcast, who's incredible, he's against the idea of like Black History Month, because he said Black history is American history. It's so intertwined that to separate those makes it seem something otherwise. And I'm not like against Black History Month, but I think that what you're saying is very valid, that this should not be something separate. This is our country, all of us here together. I think that that's really, really important. And, you know, the people you mentioned, you know, like those statistics are very real. But let me ask you, yes, those statistics are real, but also personal experiences are real too. Like an example I have is like, I teach at a Jewish school now. And I tell some of my students, like, if someone came to your house and painted swastikas on the side of your house and stuff like that, and smashed the windows and things, if someone said, well, you know what, statistically, anti-Semitism is really, really low in Los Angeles, so don't even worry about it, that doesn't help. So I think that what happens is a lot of the pushback I'm guessing that you get is like, but I've experienced this, so I know that the statistics say this, but my experience is this. And how do you wrestle with that? I have no doubt. I mean, maybe I shouldn't make assumptions, but I would assume that you've experienced racism or some level of that in your life. How do you reconcile that with the statistics? I think that's something important that can get to how the left and the right can kind of meet, because the left seems all about the anecdotal, like, this is my truth, and then the right is all about like, here's like the truth, you know, about your feelings type stuff. But I think the truth, it's the cylinder, right? Like there's a truth in the middle there. How do you reconcile those two?
Personal experiences are real. Obviously, you know, you can't deny those things. However, when we are, it would be one thing if we were just kind of like, okay, well, yes, these experiences happen to individuals and those individuals should do whatever is necessary so that justice is done. But when we go into taking those individual instances or incidents and trying to create laws or trying to, you know, make policy around them, or trying to say that this is an overarching, this is every Black, in particular Black folks, for example, or Jewish people, that is every Jewish person's experience or every Black person's experience. So therefore we need to make these sweeping laws. That's where those are the things that I have a problem with. And that's one of the things with critical race theory. You have, you know, Ibram X. Kendi, who is, you know, he wrote the anti-racism book. He wanted to create a department within, you know, the United States, the federal government, that was specifically focused on equity, which would be parsed out through race and gender, you know, and all these different identities. So that is a little dangerous to me. Not a little, that's a lot dangerous, because that is not, it's almost pretending as if we still live in a time of Jim Crow, slavery, Black codes, and, you know, all of those different types of things. It's like pretending that we still live in those times and need those types of laws and things to help Black people further their success. And that's absurd to me. This is not the same country that we were even 60 years ago, let alone, excuse me, you know, centuries ago. This is just not the same country. You know what is interesting? Well, even when Black folks had not one right to our names, we still managed to have multimillionaires, successful communities, successful families, we were still, and now I'm not trying to say that racism did not exist and there weren't hurdles and struggles and things that were just absolutely abhorrent and just vile and wrong. There absolutely were. Yeah. But my point is, even amidst all of that, back then, we were still, we didn't take that to mean that we couldn't do anything. And so it's like, not only now are we having people pretend, I guess, like we're still living in those times, but that spirit of fight and that spirit of, we're still going to conquer anyway. I feel it diminishes that when you're just like, okay, well, we're just going to give, because they're Black, we're just going to give them these things. And it just, that is not what you don't want. You don't want children to grow up thinking that skin color, because I'm Black or white or what, Jewish or religion, whatever it is, that is going to just give you something that you didn't earn. There are many psychological things that come along with this that just don't make any sense.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Everyone brings up like critical race theory in schools, and they're like, well, that's not really critical race theory. And all that nonsense we get so in the weeds.
Yeah.
It gets like, we'll just teach the truth of history. Teach the Tulsa race riots. Agreed, and teach how Black Wall Street got there too. Like, teach
Yes.
Booker T. Washington. How did they become so successful? That's equally as important as the real racist actions to crush it. But it seems like the 1619 Project is all about it's like not American history warts and all. It's just the warts. And again, then that's going to feed that mindset, right, Quisha? It's going to feed that mindset of like, well, no matter what, we're just going to get crushed. We're going to get crushed. Not like, yeah, but look at, it's like, hey, you're not allowed to sit at this table. I think it's like a Shirley Chisholm quote, right? Then is that who, I forget who it was, but it was like, if they don't have a seat at the table for you, then like build your own table.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you had to do. It's like, we're not included, fine. Then we're just going to do our own thing. And that's something that even like now, the progressive Killer Mike talks about, just like within the Black community, like supporting the Black community and everything like that. That doesn't get, I don't know, that doesn't get discussed, I think, nearly enough.
I agree. I say, if we're going, I think that is one of the ways that we combat this is to teach more of the successes that we have had in this country, because I think a lot of young kids and a lot of these kind of like 1619 Project supporters, they forget that, their own history. They forget that they are where they are because of the success of their ancestors. It's like this Nicole Hannah-Jones, you are working at at least it used to be, one of the most prestigious newspapers in the entire,
that's the irony of it.
It's so, it is very ironic. And it's like, even Ibram X. Kendi,
$20,000 an hour or something like that.
You get paid, hundreds of thousands of dollars, to speak for a very short amount of time, probably getting paid by white folks.
Yeah.
So the idea, it's just these circular arguments that lead nowhere. I feel like there are so many ways, not just with critical race theory, but so many things that are going on in society that we have literally lost being able to reason and be rational thinkers. It's almost, I'm a talker and it leaves me speechless because I'm like, whatever happened to reason? I mean, you can't on one hand say, because like one of the first tenets of critical race theory is that America is just intrinsically racist. There's nothing you can do. It's embedded in the DNA. It can't be eradicated. It's just there to stay. There's no forgiveness, no repentance, no nothing. And it's like, well, how can that be true if we have seen all of this evidence since slaves even first started coming over here, that there were people fighting against it? That's a contradicting theory, so it's like, but you're really not even allowed to ask that question on a lot of these more mainstream media platforms and stuff, because you get suppressed, you get shut down, you get called all these stupid names and things like that. And so I just find it, it's just fascinating to watch how people think, which is not being done a lot these days.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to do. Yeah, I mean, you point out like Ibram Kendi or Nicole Hannah-Jones. I mean, they're making a lot of money as intellectuals too. And like, use that term kind of loosely a little bit because I would rather lean into a Thomas Sowell or John McWhorter or someone like that. These like super geniuses out there, but they're not making money through sports or entertainment. And I think that that's a real problem in the Black community. Like they don't have enough public intellectuals to say like, I used to teach in East LA, and I would ask the questions like, how many people do you know that are financially successful through, like a traditional route, like going to college and getting a job at a bank, and it was very few. And then how many do you know? I mean, Long Beach Poly, they graduate a NFL player every graduating class. So it's like, that's a reality. Like that's what I see. And then that's what you see in that's what a lot of the Black people that you see on TV and stuff like that. Like that's real. I married my wife's Filipino, and when she came to this country, she's like, the people who look like me are posing in bikinis in front of Honda Civics. So I guess that's what I have to do.
Right.
You look at like, if you elevate, Black intellectuals and say, there's money in this, there's success in this, then more people might believe that that's a possibility. And I think that's another wrinkle that Ibram Kendi could say, like, look, I make a lot of money writing books. And even though I disagree with a lot of his ideas, that I think could be even beneficial, but he doesn't recognize that about his own entrepreneurship and success. And I think that's a problem.
I do too. And I think there's a reason why. And because again, it's contradictory. You can't on one hand say that, America's just intrinsically racist. There's nothing you can do. You got to be an anti-racist and go through all this nonsense, which is still racism at the end of the day. And then turn around and say, but hey, this system pays me. This system allows me to thrive and take care of my family. Because people would probably start to have some questions, even because I think in a sense, like you see his success on one end, but you hear what he's saying more than you actually see these like speaking engagements and things like that. And so I don't think a lot of people put two and two together that he really is making a ton of money off of this system that he's claiming that is so oppressive as a Black man.
And it's conservative outlets that are posting that, so it's not going to be MSNBC or not going to mention about how a school district paid him $30,000 for an afternoon or something like that. Like so, I mean, you can answer like, are you aligned with like the Republican Party? Would you say?
Well, I would say I'm a conservative. Okay. The Republican Party has its own issues.
I say double middle fingers to both parties.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly support the policies that they claim they believe in. So I just say I'm a conservative. I am very much a conservative. Yeah, that's how I would identify myself.
One of the criticisms I'm sure you get is that you're being used as like a pawn of the Republicans or of the racists. Like they're just using you to justify their racist ideas. Because look, the reality is you're in the South, like a lot of the good old boy, like racists, like the real, like racists, like, N-word using racists, they are more Republican. So that to have someone to be like, well, she's on our side, that there is something to that. How do you deal with that or reconcile that? Because you know kind of your place, but you're still like on some level of like the side of some of those people too.
Well, I think people would be surprised. I don't think that there is one way to describe Democrats because, okay, they may not, and I don't even know if that's true, them not using the N-word. For some reason, something tells me that if we overheard some private conversations with like a Joe Biden, I wouldn't be surprised if he used some language like that, because I think I think he might have some race. I don't like to call people racist.
Oh, he's old.
But he's old. He comes from a certain era, and I wouldn't be surprised if we heard some colorful language like that. So I don't like to say it's a Republican or Democrat thing. I think that's how the media likes to portray it. But it's the policies, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Democrats heavily support abortion. There are a lot of abortion clinic. There are more abortion clinics in like Black and brown neighborhoods, for instance, where proportionately Black women are having abortions at levels that are very, very high compared to the rest of America.
That was started, Planned Parenthood. I'm sorry to interrupt, but like that Planned Parenthood was started, and she mentioned that. She said that specifically about Black babies.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
and so I think what the Democrat Party has done a masterful job at doing is being racist without using the N-word, basically, or any
that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes. So if you look at what they push, I don't know how we can still say that they are for Black folks. I don't see it. Just about every mainstream policy that they push hurts Black people very, like, extremely more than anybody else, like defunding the police. Most Black people are totally against defunding the police. They don't care. They push it anyway. So it makes me, it's like, who are the real racists here? Who are we really saying are the real racists? Because if you are going to support abortion, defunding the police, things that keep us, these law enforcement officers that keep our neighborhoods safe, where unfortunately there is a lot of crime in certain Black neighborhoods. There's more. I hate when people kind of mix this all up. There are certainly more Black men, Black people doing way more good than there are, in the criminal element. But we do have some disturbing numbers in crime. And if you look at what they push, it doesn't seem that those two things line up. Again, it's another contradiction.
Yeah, I had Tesla Figaro on the podcast a little bit ago. You're familiar with her?
I am, yeah.
Okay, yeah, she's spicy.
She's
spicy. That's the word. Yeah. But one of the things she said is she's like, the Republicans, it's a snake who's a snake. Like the racist Republicans, I just say, not Republicans, but the racist one. It's like a snake, and I see that you're a snake. And the racist Democrats, it's like you're pretending to be something else. And what I also have noticed, and this is from a friend of mine who's born and raised in Indiana, Gary, Indiana, and he said like the racism was that like N-word type of racism, but then he moved to Sherman Oaks, a very like liberal part of LA, and he said it was like a patronizing. And when you look at the Democrat policies, I think that you're pointing out, when people might be listening, they're like, well, what policies are you talking about? How are those racist? It's patronizing. Like, it's cruel to ridicule your children, but it's also cruel to hobble them so they can't become independent. And a lot of the policies, I think that you're, correct me if I'm wrong, but the policies you're talking about are policies that are taking away their ability to rise up. It's keeping people in their position, keeping the poor, and the poor are disproportionately Black in America. So as opposed to a way to rise up, giving them, like life has hurdles, yes, but hurdles build strong legs. So that kind of concept, I think, is when what I would say more conservative Black individuals would point to is like, we need to not be taken care of, because you know what? We don't need to be taken care of. Just let us run. Let us run. Don't limit us under the guise of taking care of us. Would that be aligned?
Yes, and I don't know why is that like limited to Black folks? Like, why do we need liberals to just take care of us? Why do they believe that we are incapable of taking care of ourselves? That in itself is not only insulting, but it is racist. Why? You don't sell that to any other group. You don't sell that concept to really any other group. And so it's again the same thing as Democrats did back in the day with slavery, and you're Black, so you're just not capable of being you're not even capable of being free. You can't do certain things because you're Black. You are just there's something wrong with you because you're Black. And to me, it's the same thing. It's just okay. So we don't have an official slavery institution anymore, but what they are doing is certainly bondage. It's certainly bondage.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a good, I think that's an accurate word for it. You know, when you see that, it's like another one of those things that like, oh, it's hard to unsee. And that's John McWhorter and Glenn Lowry, they talked about that. Like when you,
Yeah.
and it's happening in schools where they lower the standards. Oh,
Yeah.
if you're too emotionally distraught and you're a POC, then you don't have to do this. Getting rid of the honors classes because they're less. It's like, well, no, what you're saying they can't? Like, no, what you have to do is give them the ability, you know, you have to still teach them. You have to
Right.
teach them better. But
Mhm.
to say that, don't take it away as if they
Right.
can't do it. Just teachers, my people, do your job.
Right.
Because I've taught so many super geniuses who were just, you know, they were selling drugs or they were in these crazy situations, but they were so bright. It was just this wasted potential.
Right.
It's that's what's so tragic. It's this wasted potential that's all
Yeah.
over, and these, you know, all these big corporations and stuff. They go to these few feeder schools,
Hmm.
but there's so much untapped brilliance in the
Yeah.
hood that there should be it would be wise of us to go in there and find that, because
Yes.
there's
Gold.
so much gold. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
gold there. These kids are, I think, you know, and this is, I think that that's a part of the American, that's kind of just our way. That's
Yeah.
not, you know, I think that's the American thing, because you can go to other countries, and I'm sure that, you know, obviously there's smart people in all countries, but you don't see that ability. We you know, the American culture, it pushes you to do better, you know, it pushes you, what we, you know, our ability and our support of innovation, and you know, pushing you to just be better, do better,
Yeah.
individual freedom to, you know, pursue your goals, your dreams. It's embedded, you know, into the fabric of our country. And so there are so many kids, and it's kind of weird. They have almost like, once they kind of get, you know, into society a little bit, you see that innovation, that, you know, those think, that how they think. My oldest daughter, for instance, um she she's a little entrepreneur. So when she was in like elementary school, she started selling slime. Her
Mhm.
idea was, she's like, you know, there's another girl selling slime too. I'm gonna, you know, I'm gonna make better slime, and I'm gonna, you know, make my prices, you know, more competitive so I can take her customers. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that. I'm like,
That's
go for it.
awesome.
We had people ringing our doorbell. You know, it looked like we were doing something a little crazy, but it was like, you know, all these kids like coming to buy slime for my daughter. She's like, yes, mom, I did it. I shut her business down.
Yeah.
But I think that, you know, this was her own idea. You know, this was, I didn't, you know, tell her. I mean, granted, you know, her father and I, we are both kind of, you know, we both have entrepreneurial spirits, but, you know, I wasn't like, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go out there and, you know, sell something. But she, you know, she just has that kind of thing. You know, her mind just thinks like that.
That's
And
incredible.
so,
I love
yeah,
entrepreneurs.
I mean, these kids are super creative. They are super, you know, they don't have those debilitating mindsets. We, the adults, the teachers, the older people, we are putting them on them, and it's suppressing their talent. And then we look out into society and we're like, well, why aren't these kids succeeding in the way? Because we've told them that because they're Black, they can't.
Yeah.
You know, this is, it's simple.
Yeah.
This is not rocket science here. It's a very simple concept. When you have parents and they're pushing, you know, that same ideology of, oh, if you're Black, you can't, you know, the kids are going to reflect that.
For sure. There was a study out of the Manhattan Institute that Ian Rowe sent me. He's like a Black conservative. He sent me, and it was by, I wrote it down, Eric Kaufman. It was April of 2021, and what they did was they asked a whole bunch of questions about like your ability to create change in your life and upward mobility and perception of racism in the world. And they asked people who are on the left end of the political spectrum and those on the right. And the ones on the left had a far um, greater emphasis on race and racism in the country and in their own lives, and a lot less hope about what is possible. And that was like, it was really like upsetting. They took like an excerpt from like Thomas Sowell or something like that. And they had kids read it, and then they had one from Ta-Nehisi Coates, and they had kids read it. And after they read the Ta-Nehisi Coates, and I'm getting the language wrong, but it's essentially like they became more hopeless.
Wow.
And that's what we're pushing is this, like, I know you can talk about how things were bad, Nicole Hannah-Jones. I get it. Things were bad. Things still are bad. You go to a lot of Black communities and it's still bad. Agreed. Yes. And what is the ladder out? There is no, like, to give us the ladder out, focusing on how wrong you've had it and how much the world has screwed you over. Everyone can do that. I teach some very wealthy kids, and they can do that too, because dad's not around because he's working all the time, and they might have a Bentley, but like, you know, the nanny picks them up. They haven't seen their mom because, you know, like there's a lot of, we all have these hardships, some more than others for sure, but are you going to just focus on that? You talk about mindset. That's, my wife made this mug for me. It's my face frowning. It says mindset privilege. I think that there's so many privileges. And I think white privilege does exist in many situations. I think that male privilege does exist in many situations, but there are a lot of privileges. If you're good looking, that's a huge privilege. If you're healthy, if you have wealth, all of these matter. Will Smith and Jada Smith's kids, like they might have like a Black woman as a daughter, but like having tremendous wealth and resources, that's a privilege. But if you have mindset privilege, this is my contention, someday if I read a book on it, then that'll supersede all of the others.
I totally agree. I think it all starts within the mind. You know, Frederick Douglass said, even, you know, way back then, he said, without struggle, there is no progress. I think we are making it way too easy and giving kids way too much of an out when they meet struggle to say, racism, you know, and it's like, yes, like you said, that did happen back then. Yes, it was ugly, but to try to make that what's happening across, you know, all, you know, in Black neighborhoods and Black communities, for everyone, it's just nonsense. I mean, and just how America kind of looks at poverty as a whole, like that is even like nonsense in my opinion. Our poor have cars, flat screen TVs, cell phones, shelter, food, clothing, nice clothing too. The real poor, like India poor.
Yeah, my wife's from the Philippines. Yeah.
The Philippines type of poverty. Could you imagine? If you sent an American, I don't care what color they were, if you sent the poorest American to live in a country like India amongst the poor, they would be offended. Be like, oh my God, could you please get me out of here? Like they would be like, what the heck is this? You know, because that is just, we have created such a wealthy society that I believe we don't appreciate what we have. And we keep searching for this perfection of history, perfection of, you know, equality, perfection of, you know, all of these different things that will never come. It will never be a time that racism doesn't exist, that murder doesn't exist, that liars don't exist. I mean, all of these bad things will always exist. Yeah. But we have to come to some resolve to press on anyway. We have to come to some resolve to know that, okay, that's humanity. That is humanity. And we have progressed. We have, I mean, tons. I mean, you can look back on history where, you know, genocides and all types of, you know, illnesses that just used to wipe people out. I mean, we just don't live in that. We don't live in that anymore. And it's mind-boggling. It's almost like they want us to, you know, they want us to just be so oppressed and just, you know, distraught and just depressed and just, you know, no hope for anything. I don't know what type of society they're trying to create, but I can tell you this, that outlook does not produce anything that we are really ready to face.
Yeah. No, I hear you. And I think that what that also gets, if you go to a poor country, or what I teach, because I teach history, I said one of the benefits of this, one of the many benefits of learning history is to have gratitude for today. Gratitude, my wife and I say, if we could instill one like characteristic trait in our children, I think one of the biggest ones would be gratitude. Just to be grateful for what you have.
Mm-hmm.
You can always focus on what you don't have,
Yeah.
but to look at what you have and be grateful for that. And I guess that's very aligned with Christianity as well, as the concept of gratitude and having,
Yeah.
that element. Can I ask you, Quisha, like how would you, because you, I don't know, you're a force. So how would you deal with someone who is blatantly racist towards you? Because, and Coleman Hughes said one time that when he's had dealt with like people saying racist things to him or acting racist ways, he said he initially went to not anger, but he felt like pity. Like he was like, that person is like, they're like pathetic, like in a real way, not even like an insulting way, just like a real like, oh, like that's really the way you think about me. That's like sad. How would you react to that? Because I think that your answer could be really beneficial for young people out there who, like, yes, racism was way worse in the past, but they still might encounter it today. Like it still does exist.
Right.
So how do you deal with that, or would you deal with that?
I can't say that I've had like direct racism. I probably have had, I'm sure I've had some indirect racism or something that somebody said something and I just totally missed because I don't know. I can be like that a little bit sometimes, like, oh, what happened? I missed it. I certainly have thought about that though. I do feel for them. I do think that it's very ignorant to think that a person's skin color could actually literally define who the person is. I mean, it's, when you think about it, it's such a weak notion. Skin doesn't think, it cannot, it doesn't rationalize. Like skin is almost as just important as like hair or nails. Like it's going in the dirt, and that's it. And for somebody to put that much emphasis on something that is so, meaningless, it's just ridiculous. I mean, usually those types of people are very, they're just not well traveled. They haven't really left where they live. They haven't really experienced much. And so typically, they tend to be, and just from what I've seen, because like I said, I haven't really experienced like full on, just
even in the South. I mean,
even
go through Alabama or like late at night. There's like dudes coming back from a fishing trip with their trucker hat on. You're not like,
No,
Okay.
and I think maybe the privilege of being a woman, I think maybe that might have been something different because I don't know. I mean, I don't know, but I've never been called the N-word. I can't.
Do you think it'd be different if you had grown up around that or had a really traumatic experience with someone doing something like that, like a hate crime? Do you think you'd be different?
Well, when I did, so my family, I'm from Lake City, Florida, and my family moved to Connecticut when I was 13. So I'm like half Southern, half Northern. But I do remember I was on a school bus and these black sisters had gotten to a fight with these, I think they were brothers, and they were like really fighting. And those the white kids did use racial slurs against those girls. And so I've seen it. Like, I mean, they were fighting. Like, it was bloody. It was like, ooh, it was awful. So I've seen it. It wasn't directed towards me, but that was, even then, like, that was not the norm. That was not how. I was on a cheerleading team, dance team with, was predominantly white. We had sleepovers, we had, we did all kinds of stuff together. We were a team.
It's a non-issue.
Yeah, I mean, I do remember, I think there was one chick, she told a story of sometime, like some girl didn't want to get, it wasn't even, it wasn't directed towards me. It was just like kind of, she was telling a story of somebody didn't want to get into a pool or something because that some Black people had previously swam in the pool or something like that. But when we went out to the beach, to the pool, like you would see all, people playing together and doing, so it, like I said, you have these individual circumstances. It doesn't mean that that is everyone's experience.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to make all that make sense when you see, like in the grocery store, when you just live your everyday life, you see people, you see a white guy coming up to the older Black lady, hey ma'am, can I help you with that? You just see the benevolence of people.
But that's
I just don't see it in the way that it's trying to be pushed on us, like it's just everywhere and every white person is just racist. They can't wait for their opportunity to show their racism. I just don't see that.
Well, I think that the language you use, I think, is the best language. You don't see it. So that's what the critical race theory, and I call it critical social justice. I am so tired of people saying that's not real, that's not legal scholarship. It's like, relax, whatever you want to call it then.
Right.
Wokeness. You want me to use wokeness? Like, that's offensive too. So like, whatever, you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So whatever it is. The whole point of it though is you don't see it, Quisha. You don't see it, but it's there. So look for it. And if you do look for it, I'm sure you could, because that's what now my friend Kamika Titi saw. She's like, do you want to say like, oh, well, that white guy was just helping that Black woman because he kind of thought she's a Black woman, she can't help herself. You could do that with everything. But at some point, doesn't there have to be a choice? It has to be a choice to go, I'm choosing not to view the world this way. Because there's no you could find evidence, kind of, but not really, nothing concrete. So aren't you making the choice to just like not look at the world as like an evil, oppressive, horrible place? And that, like, isn't that like at some point gonna have to be a choice for people to make? But in schools, it's just how I found you speaking out about schools, and I'm deeply involved. I'm involved with Foundation Against Intolerance and Racism. I'm involved with Heterodox Academy and Irshad Manji, like all these different nonprofits that are trying to fight back, write curriculum for schools. Because what's happening in schools is they're trying to do just that. They're trying to say, imagine like, you said you have a daughter who's like, getting into high school. She's like this entrepreneur. She's like, I can smash the world. I can get what I want out of it. This world is made for me. This world is mine, Scarface style. Yeah. And then having someone come in and be like, actually, no, all these people, they're all against you. They're all like crushing that.
That happened. That happened to my daughter.
Please tell me the story.
She was walking in the hallway, and a Black teacher, he told her, she was like giggling, they were coming from the bathroom with her friend and they're walking back to class. And he said, you have to be careful because you're Black and you're a woman, and that's going to like be an impediment to your success. I'm paraphrasing, but I was extremely pissed. You don't put those limitations on my kid. You don't put that in her head to make her focus like, oh my gosh, okay, because that's true. She is Black. She is a girl. Right. So if she starts to equate that with success or failure, that can be debilitating for her entire life. I do not take kindly to anyone, especially when it comes to my children, putting these limiting mindsets on them, because that's what was done to a lot of us, growing up. Oh, you're Black, you have to work 5 times harder. You're Black, you got to do this. You're Black. It's like, oh my gosh, it's hard to thrive when you already think, I used to do it myself. Like I would be presented with an opportunity, would have worked and earned it. And before I walk into the room, I would have this thought, oh my gosh, I am Black. Ooh, is this going to go well? Not until I got rid of seeing myself through that lens was when I really, really started to just thrive. I mean, it was like, talk about bondage. It was like years of weight that was just lifted off of me. My God, I felt so free. I could feel it. That's why I don't think people understand what you're doing when you constantly just tell people that they can't because of this or that, and just these unrealistic and dishonest, notions or mindsets rather that you are putting on them. I don't think people realize how really debilitating that really is. I can't stress to you and your audience enough the freedom that I felt once I realized I can do all things for me through Christ. I can. Like, okay, I'm going to choose to believe what God says about me than what, society has, thought up about me, because his word, it carries so much weight, and it is the truth, and so it was just so freeing. It was so freeing.
Yeah, I mean, you could say like, black women have been oppressed, but true. And you have all these opportunities. True. Pick your true. Which true do you want? And you're going to pick the one. You should pick the one that's going to benefit you, your loved ones, and your community as a whole. And I'm telling you, it's not what's going on right now. There's no evidence. This is a question that I've never seen asked to Ibram Kenny, because I know he can't answer it, is show me a piece of evidence how your training makes the lives better for these kids. Show me an example, concrete example of how a kid read how to be an anti-racist, and their life got, quantifiably better. They scored better on tests, or they started making more money or something like that. It doesn't exist. So pick your true, and if you're going to pick one, pick the one that is benefiting everything that you want to get out of this world.
Yeah, I think he's the only one that's benefiting off of those ideas.
Yeah, if you read this nonsense book, then you can read a nonsense book too.
Right. Exactly.
So just in closing, like you said this stuff about like, the weight was lifted. It was like an epiphany. It's like you all of a sudden, it's almost like the Matrix. Like you're just like, oh my gosh. And I hear that over and over and over again from a lot of people. How do we, and this would be like educators, people who are like influencers, as gross as that term is, like, how do we do that? How do we grow this? How do we get more people, okay, of all races and cultures and stuff like that, but just especially, I would say specifically because of the conversation with you in this episode, is like in the Black community to go, wait a second, whoa, I can do these things. I am like this. Even these racist individuals aren't going to keep me down. The world is open. The world is mine. How do we scale that?
Not bad of it. I think it's going to take other Black folks, all of us, to start doing exactly what you're doing, what I'm doing, what so many of us are doing, to start getting people to say, wait a minute, they're telling you this, but showing them the contrast, basically. Okay, here's what they're saying, and here's this side over here. We have got to get back to thinking, like critically thinking. I think that has been sort of, just shut down. We're not examining what we're actually consuming. We're not questioning, okay, does that actually make sense? When Joe Biden said, if you don't vote for me, then you ain't Black, why was that not, like, even the guy he said it to, the host, like, why wasn't he like, what? You know what I mean? I think we've just got to start questioning what people are saying to us. So basically, I would say just more education, more talking, more, showing people like, wait a minute, you don't have to buy into this. I believe in you. You can do anything you put your mind to. Anything, like, this is not a race thing. This is a human being thing. It's just how human beings function. If you're persistent, if you don't quit, if you don't give up, if you all these things, you can be successful. I'm working on a project, an organization where we do that, where we go into different neighborhoods, people who are not typically exposed to conservative ideas or just individual thinking and just, just a different way of thinking, and bringing in successful people and having them tell the struggle of their story. Because I think that's what's missing. I think people see like, LeBron James, the Puff Daddy or Jay-Z, Beyonce, and we see the end product. We are definitely a microwave society. We see the end product and everybody looks good. Everybody's on TV. Everybody's driving a fancy car, living in a fancy house, but we don't see the struggle. We don't hear very much about the struggles, but if you read any successful person's their autobiographies or things like that, in every single one of them, white, black, red, yellow, green, purple, they had significant struggles that they had to overcome.
And that's kind of why they became successful too, is because of being able to overcome those struggles.
Because they overcame them. It's like, that's just how this world works. That's just, you want to talk about a system, that's just the system of this world. You start out, you're met with a struggle, because that struggle is going to bring, it's like you fail forward. You're gonna learn something. You're gonna overcome something. You're gonna be stronger. You're going to, all these old sayings, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That's true. Like all of these things that we used to know. We used to know this stuff. We see it over and over and over, but we're not internalizing it. It's not clicking. It's like the heart and the head is not lining up. And so I think that that's what is going to happen. More of showing that struggle piece, because what the Ibram X. Kendis and Nicole Hannah-Jones, what they're doing is taking the struggle and making it automatically a failure, instead of taking the struggle and letting that lead you to success. So I think it's just an education thing.
Yeah, very well said. So you are, just in closing, you're a political consultant. Civic engagement is also got to be one of the ways, right? Like getting your communities together and getting into changing policies to get bad ideas, whatever, out of schools or out of whatever, so you can push good policies. And you help people to win campaigns and things like that, because that is a game. There is a strategy for how to do that. There's a weird thing. We're going through something in California. It's like our governor's terrible, but he's well connected. So if you're going to be going up against these Goliaths, then you're going to need help. So I'm guessing that's part of what you do. Where can people follow you, find you, keep up with everything that you're doing?
Sure. So you can find me on Twitter at, I think it's I am Quisha K, or I'm Quisha K, sorry. And then on Instagram, I am Quisha K. But just type in Quisha King with a Q and I will pop up.
Yeah, so it's Quisha, because when I first saw your video, I kept looking up, maybe it's just because I'm a white dude, but like K-E-E, and I was like, where is this lady? How do I get a hold of her? Where can I find her? And then I think I saw on Twitter tagged you, and I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot of ways to do that phonetically.
I know.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really love this conversation, and it just keeps solidifying what I've been seeing and hearing about the people who have found success and have a good mindset that I can try and pass on to teachers who are listening, and then just open-minded people. Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation, Quisha.
So did I. Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care.